you want your guy making that trade if indeed they go through with this. I don't know what this does to the current state of negotiations, because I'm stunned at the timing of this because of how much people in Minnesota were preparing as if this is what they had going into the season. I mean, as of this morning, Gersson Rosas was in the gym with guys in Minnesota working out, talking player development, talking culture building. I mean, this definitely.
Reckless speculation.
All right. Doogie joins us from the 5 Eyewitness News sports team from the Scoop podcast, which you can find every week on scorenorth.com and the SKOR North app. This is, I'm going to call it informed speculation Thursday here on Maggie and Judd. So that was Ramona Shelburne and the ESPN crew just talking about Gersson was walking around yesterday morning. You start wherever you want, Dukes. What information? What are your thoughts? We just vented for a half hour to start the show, and so it was fairly therapeutic. But you take us wherever you want with this thing.
Well, I'll go a different direction. Now, it can dovetail a number of ways, but I'll piggyback off of what Ramona was just saying. Curious, what sort of power now Sachin Gupta has. I'll just tell you this much. Call it maybe more a hunch than I don't want people to aggregate this, put it that way, but I'm bringing it up. So I guess, you know what, do whatever the heck you want with it. But my sense is Sachin Gupta would move D'Angelo Russell for Ben Simmons. Remember, Gupta was in Philadelphia for a little bit when they drafted Ben Simmons. I'll also tell you this much. Sachin Gupta has a better relationship with Daryl Morey than Gersson Rosas
really
did. Yeah, I mean, they were together. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, until I hear that Daryl Morey, others in Philadelphia want D'Angelo Russell, it's fun fodder, but I don't get the sense Philly actually wants D'Angelo Russell. But I do wonder at some point when Ben Simmons doesn't show up next week, at some point does Morey say, okay, that's about the best we can do. Russell, Jaden McDaniels, some other pieces. Although I know Gupta, I can tell you, I feel pretty confident saying this. I don't think Gupta was very much pro the D'Angelo Russell trade, especially with the protections on the pick. Sachin loves those draft picks. So it might be tough for him to move a couple future first-round picks depending on the protection. But I'll be curious to see, what sort of leash, what sort of leeway does Gupta have? Does Glenn Taylor, does Mark Lowry, does Alex Rodriguez allow Sachin, if he wants to execute a Ben Simmons trade, does he have the power to do that? He does not have the permanent title of president of operations. This is an interim situation, and he'll have a chance to maintain that title, but they're also going to do an open-ended search. I'm positive, Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report had the initial steam on Elton Brand's name. I think he will be in the mix. Landry Fields, I'll give you another name. Landry Fields, I expect him to be in the mix. Calvin Booth in Denver, who was a part of the process a couple years ago. I fully expect him to be in the mix. There's some other names that I can throw out as well. Mike Winger with the Clippers. He bailed from the process a couple years ago, but they had a lot of interest in him. So I can go up and down the list of potential names, but Gupta is definitely going to have a chance to stick. So I'm curious to see how much power he has over the next handful of months.
Is that Gupta outside your house, and is Scooby trying to bark him down?
We got to give Doogie a round of applause for the professionalism. Yep. Just absolute laser focus there. That was great.
You guys, Scooby is telling Doogie what to say, okay?
You need an IFB for Scooby.
Hey, Scooby, come here. Treat.
He's like, I got some scoops too, dude.
You can't make up this dog. So yesterday, I end up working late on Wednesdays. And so I let him out in the backyard. We have a fenced backyard. Yep. I let him out in the backyard at 1 o'clock. I go to take a pee. I go to let him in 3-4 minutes later. I see him on the other side of the fence. So he somehow got out, more than likely because he's 95 pounds. I think he leaped over the fence, but maybe he got underneath.
Ooh, good vertical.
So then I walk around. I'm not going to start chasing him. He wanted to take himself on a walk. I just didn't have time yesterday. I ended up doing 3 or 4 different interviews, some commitments I had going back many weeks. I just didn't have a window to give him his traditional walk. I was hoping my wife would give him the walk when she got home. So he was desperate for the walk. No joke. He took himself on a walk. I had to follow him through the neighborhood finally because he wouldn't come back to me. I knew how to get him. So I had to walk back home, grab the car, and then he hops into the car. Like, this dog is so much smarter.
And then he
than I
drove
wanna
you
give him
home.
credit for. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Get him on a leash, man.
Yeah.
I hate
Woof.
dogs that aren't leashed up because my poor little pup, Stella.
So, real
Very
quick,
upset.
okay, follow up to what you just said with Gupta. Because I think Judd and I are just in Declan, we're just in this spot where it's like The Departed. We don't trust anybody anymore. I know it doesn't. There's no one underneath Glenn Taylor that we can say we have full trust in at this point. So, what are your thoughts on Gupta? What does the league think of him? Could he still pull a Ben Simmons trade? Does he have any skeletons in the closet that we need to be aware of that are not public right now? Like, what's the word on him?
I am not aware of skeletons. In fact, I was just talking to Bobby Marks of ESPN about Gupta. He knows Gupta well. I've had a couple conversations with him. He was on Scoop Podcast episode 315 about a year ago for about 30 minutes. So we went back and forth on his background. I can tell you, I have not heard of any skeletons. Like, when Gersson Rosas got hired, I had heard the Dallas stories. I had heard some Houston stories. But I thought, hey, maybe he's moved past those. Hey, Ethan Casson, Tanky, others, Jim Peterson, Cheryl Reeve, they were a part of the process. I think all those people are sharp individuals. I thought, hey, you know what? They knew what they were doing. They hired a guy that's fully capable. All right, but I had heard the stories. No, in regards to Gupta, no, I've not heard of any skeletons being in the closet. I had somebody I respect a ton last night, Phil, make the comp of Sam Presti. So Sam Presti is one of the sharpest executives in the league. He runs the Oklahoma City Thunder. If you look at his resume when he got that job many years ago, it's comparable to Sachin Gupta's resume right now. Yeah, could Gupta use some help in terms of, basketball evaluation? Is he more a numbers guy, an analytical guy? Yeah, maybe so, but I think you can hire the right people and, get the job done that way. So I fully expect him to have a great shot to stick here long term. I had mentioned, going back many weeks that there was a Wolves employee who had a nice offer from a Western Conference team. Well, now it's out there. We had it on TV yesterday. I know also The Athletic wrote about it. It was the Houston Rockets, and it was the Rockets trying to hire Sachin Gupta to be their number 2. So it would have been a lateral move, but he was going to make more money. Gersson Rosas blocked Sachin from going because it was right before the draft, right before free agency. I actually didn't have a problem with that. I think based on the timing, if I was Gersson, I probably would have blocked my number 2 as well. But there was a lot of friction with that. And, undoubtedly, Sachin had multiple conversations, specifically with Mark Lowry, like many people in the organization did. Dr. Robbie Sick on his way out, he for sure talked to ownership. Sachin, others. Word started to get out about the dysfunction with Gersson Rosas. I'll give you another story about that. So the Patrick Beverley trade goes down. It was broken by Woj on a Tuesday morning. Remember, Beverley gets traded to Memphis on a Sunday. Then it was 2 days later he gets traded here, right? So I do a new Scoop podcast a couple days later. Within that Scoop podcast, I said that, like, any talk of collaboration, like, we can laugh at that. This perception that they're holding hands over at Mayo Clinic Square.
Family, collaboration.
You've heard me, right? All of you guys. You've heard me bring this
twins.
up before. So this is not me breaking news. Fans wanted to insinuate something, read between the lines, fine. So be it. I have been championing that cause for a while, that it wasn't kumbaya, that there isn't all this collaboration that Gersson likes to talk about. And I specifically referenced the Patrick Beverley trade, that was Gersson's guy. He did that on his own. Everything happened really fast, which, by the way, fine. As president of operations, sometimes you need to do stuff like that on your own. You are the final decision maker. I was okay with that. I'm just upset with this perception that it's all, peaches and cream over there. So I record a Scoop podcast. A couple days later, Bree Bauer, who's no longer with the Timberwolves organization, but Bree Bauer at the time, head of, essentially media relations, calls me and says, hey, Gersson wants to talk to you. Gersson wants to talk to you on background. He's upset with some things you said. I said, great, fine, fantastic. So we line up a phone call for that next day after the podcast had posted. And we end up talking on background / off the record for 37 minutes. In fact, it was a conversation that was gold. He ended up giving me some good stuff about Ben Simmons, some other stuff. Like, Gersson and I had a fantastic chat. He wanted to explain to me that he does collaborate with everybody in the organization, that he doesn't make singular moves, that it's very much a family atmosphere. I said, Gersson, with all due respect, I talk to people that I trust, longstanding relationships that, hey, I said what I said and I didn't say it lightly. And we came to a happy medium. He respects the job that I do. And then we ended up just talking about a bunch of different stuff. But how about the irony there? That he was upset at me for suggesting that there's not this big collaboration. Now we're hearing today all these stories of the dysfunction, including the lack of collaboration, right?
Dukes,
like just the juiciness of that.
That actually makes sense because people like that want to control what you're saying. Like it makes more sense when people get caught doing what they don't do well. They're much more likely to get mad because in their mind, you don't know this and now you do. And they're like, how did you know that? And so they try and spin their truth. So to go back to your point about Gersson's brief stay in Dallas, because I'm very curious about this. What had you heard or what did you know? Because this is where I fault Glenn and his immediate camp. So not Jim Pete, not Cheryl. But
Ethan Casson, yes.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'll just call him out right now. Ethan has to do a different job this time around, or Ethan cannot be involved in this next process.
What did Doogie know?
Ethan is super sharp, but Ethan blew this. He just did.
But what did you know? Because if you knew stuff, then why didn't they? So
Good
what
question? Yeah. Why didn't they? Because Gersson
and
went
Scooby
through interview classes. He nailed the interview. Also, Calvin Booth, Chauncey Billups, within their slide presentation, had some similar stuff. It was a red flag. I mean, essentially, Chauncey and Calvin used the same person to help them prepare for the interview. And Gersson was so thoroughly prepared.
Hey, let's pause for. No, we'll keep going, but we're gonna mute you for just a second so that Scooby can.
Scooby's very upset.
I'm sorry.
Scooby's very upset.
He's very down on Glenn Taylor.
We'll
In the bio, I have scoops with Doogie and Scoobs, by the way. As my executive producing, I put scoops with Doogie and Scooby as a tag team here.
He wants the job.
Yeah.
And he might get it. Glenn might hire Scooby. Scooby's got a chance at that job.
So this is Scoop halftime here, and we'll get to more inside information. We also have
water break.
Jalen Suggs said something incredible.
Yeah, this is
about the Minnesota Gophers that we'll get to. But a shout out to Federated Mutual Insurance Company. Hey, listen, man, if your company needs help with risk management, they're here to help you. Federated's been around for over 100 years. They've got all kinds of tools, resources, people that can help with your bottom line, with risk management, and also with protecting employees. Find out more about how they can help you at federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. All right, second half here.
Yeah,
Doogie's
I'm
back
good
with
now.
us.
Yeah,
all right,
Scooby's outside. He had to go poop. I mean, so I can't blame him, right? Like, if I had to go poop,
I myself am getting a little
allow me to go
good.
poop.
Get. You know what? I'll be right back.
See you guys. Bye.
Declan's gonna bark now.
I'll be
too.
right back.
Oh man.
Okay.
Okay. So where we left off was Ethan Casson, the Wolves CEO. He helped spearhead the process that landed Gersson. Right. Got to do a better job. All right.
He just can't be involved. I mean, Ethan does a lot
he's the
of
CEO
good stuff,
he's the CEO.
but he just can't be involved this time around. Mark Lowry needs to make this hire by himself.
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean, I can see that.
That's what I
Mark
said.
Lowry needs to make this hire.
But if you can't trust your CEO to be involved in a major organizational hire, I mean,
if I were Mark Lowry, after gathering, if I know this, he now knows all this. If I'm Mark Lowry, I'm convincing Glenn I'm making this hire. Let me do this. I'm just telling you. Mark Lowry has to make this hire.
So, Dukes, is as far as the potential trade for Simmons goes now, do you sense this changes things greatly? Do you sense the Wolves are out, or from what you said about Gupta, do you actually sense that they might be more involved than previously? And how big of issue did Rosas have with ultimately including D'Lo in a package if that was going to have to happen?
Yeah, well, I mean, Rosas made it very clear to Daryl, to others in the Philadelphia organization going back multiple months that two players were off limits, Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns. That being said, because he did not say that D'Angelo Russell was off limits. That being said, there was some reluctance in including D'Angelo Russell in any Ben Simmons transaction, that the idea from Gersson's standpoint was, I want D'Angelo to play with Ben Simmons. They were teammates in high school. They have a relationship. I want Ben here with D'Angelo. So he waffled that a little bit. Now, when it comes to Gupta, do I think Gupta, a little bit more maybe reckless speculation here, maybe not informed speculation. Again, I hope this isn't aggregated, but if it is, so be it. But do I sense that Sachin is more open-minded to moving D'Angelo Russell? Yes, I do, than Gersson Rosas.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm telling you, until I hear that Philadelphia has sincere, legit interest in D'Angelo Russell, I'm not going to believe that D'Angelo Russell is heading to Philadelphia. Now, maybe a couple weeks from now, when Ben Simmons isn't there, when it's a sideshow, when Joel Embiid, when Doc Rivers, when others in the organization are asked on a daily basis by the Philadelphia media, is Ben Simmons a distraction? Maybe at some point Daryl says, you know what, enough is enough. I just need to accept anything at this point. I prefer move him to the Western Conference than, to Boston, to New York, to Cleveland. So, yeah, I'll take D'Angelo Russell. I'll take Jaden McDaniels. I'll take a couple future first-round picks. So maybe it gets to that point. But at this point, we're not there, and I have yet to hear that Philadelphia has any interest in D'Angelo Russell.
I don't know if you'll have any immediate information on this because it was just tweeted yesterday. But Karl Anthony Towns tweeting WTF after the Gersson Rosas news came down. We're always worried, right, about just making sure Cat's got the people around him. Like, oh my God, if you fire Ryan, is Cat going to leave the franchise, right? I'm more interested in just building a winning franchise and culture, not being so paralyzed by, well, if you trade D'Lo, is Cat going to leave? If you trade D'Lo for Ben Simmons and that makes the team better, that's the first priority. However, he was clearly caught off guard by this news yesterday. What is your sense of his relationship, Cat, with Gersson and with Gupta?
Well, I'll tell you this much, Phil. Cat's relationship with the Saunders family, with Ryan, trumps any relationship he has with Gersson. So if Cat recovered okay from the Ryan Saunders firing, Cat will be okay now. You're right. It's all about winning. Cat has heard from so many people, you've only been All-NBA one time. You've only been to the playoffs one time in 6 years. And oh, by the way, it's because of Jimmy Butler. Cat has heard all that chatter. Cat wants to put that aside. Cat wants to say, I'm taking ownership, and we're going to get this thing done. And that's why this is an all-in year. Still, even with this news of Gersson being dismissed, this is an all-in year. If the Wolves do not make the playoffs, minimum, and that's the expectation internally. If they don't, and externally for a lot of people, if they don't make the playoffs, then, yeah, I think 1 year from now, we'll keep an eye on the situation, wondering if it gets to the point of Anthony Davis asking out in New Orleans.
What does this mean for Chris Finch as well?
Yeah, well, he is going to remain coach. He's got a lot of fans in the organization. They see the offensive brilliance. Heck, Chris Finch, by the way, Judd, was at Dunkers on Tuesday morning talking glowingly about how things have been going, the trip to Miami. So you talk about Gersson Rosas being on the court Wednesday morning. Chris Finch was in front of some very influential people at a breakfast on Tuesday morning, just gushing about how great
everything's fine. Burning GIF in the background.
Yeah. So the spotlight's on, right, Judd? But it would have been on regardless. Like if this is a non-playoff year, the shelf life of coaches is so minimal in the NBA that Chris would be on the hot seat regardless. But certainly, with a new boss, Chris was always Gersson's guy. We had heard those whispers when Gersson took the job May of 2019. Like we had heard then that he loved Chris Finch. I tweeted as such that was at least one of his guys, at least made some hints that Gersson had love for Chris Finch. But Chris Finch legitimately earned an NBA head coaching opportunity. He should be an NBA head coach. He'll have a chance now to prove himself throughout the course of an entire season.
We have an amazing clip we want to play for you, but if you've got any other just Wolves nuggets or information, fire away because this is a non-Wolves clip that we're going to play.
So there's an up-and-coming scout. I tweeted his name, and I didn't write it down. But anyway, look for him to jump to Sacramento pretty quick. So you talk about the change in the organization this summer. This individual jumping to Sacramento. Dr. Robbie Sika leaving, Sachin Gupta wanting to leave for the Houston Rockets, Zarko Duricic, 20-plus year employee, beloved by everyone. He's not retained with his contract expiring. I mean, there's been a good amount of change. I mean, even in the last, calendar year with Ryan Saunders, with Sam Newman-Beck, who did a good job in Iowa. Like, think about the guys that have been in Iowa: Jordan McLaughlin, Jared Vanderbilt, some other guys, Jalen Noel. Think about their development, right? Naz Reid. Think about those guys' development. Sam Newman-Beck had a good amount to do with that. Then he gets fired after this past season. So there's been a lot of change, and I imagine we'll continue to see some change, because whether it's Sachin or Elton Brand or Landry Fields or Calvin Booth or someone else, they inevitably will want to bring in some of their own people.
Mm-hmm. All right, Declan, let's fire this up here. This is a clip from a FanDuel podcast. Jalen Suggs talking about what could have been.
So sophomore year going into junior year, I am ready to commit to Minnesota. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do both sports. I'll play with PJ. The basketball, I'll do it. I need a little more from them. I just need a little more from the basketball side. They didn't.
What do you mean?
Never came around really.
What do you mean? Like, they need more attention? You need more attention?
No. I didn't care about that. I was gonna change it, but they didn't come to recruit. They didn't come to many games. Like, they weren't at practice. And like, when you were that close, and especially, I never really had too much interaction with Patino. Like, I don't know, he's cool. Like, the times we did talk, he's good people, but I wish if he would have just came a little more, like showed interest, and like he actually wanted me to be there, then I think it would have been easy. And I honestly would have chopped it up and committed probably my late junior year to Gonzaga. I mean, to Minnesota.
Like about ASU.
Wow.
Rock.
Homecoming week, baby.
If I'm PJ Fleck, I'm pissed when I hear that.
Your thoughts?
Jalen Suggs and PJ Fleck have a very close relationship. In fact, they bonded before the Ohio State game when Jalen was on the field.
How does Jalen Suggs have a better relationship with PJ Fleck than Richard Pitino?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. All that being said, call me nuts, because I can't say this with 100% validity. I still don't think if Richard Pitino was in the Minnehaha Academy gym more often, at more games, more in-home visits, when, recruiting allowed such things, I still don't think Jalen Suggs ultimately plays for the Gophers. He can say that now. It's convenient to say that now. I'm just telling you, Phil, I don't think Jalen Suggs was ever going to play basketball at Minnesota. But everything else he said, the lack of appearances, all that, I'll give you one more. There was an assistant coach that started to doze off on Jalen Suggs' couch on an in-home visit. Not Pitino. It wasn't Pitino. Okay, let me make that clear. And I don't need to say that.
He dozed off in someone else's house?
It was like a media member we know, Judd, a quasi-media member that, sometimes is sitting there over at the Vikings, kind of nodding his head,
oh my God.
eyes popping open.
Yeah.
And again, let me make it very clear.
It
It was not Pitino. Okay, but one
is.
of his assistant coaches was with him on this in-home visit. So, yeah, they did a horrible job recruiting Jalen.
But Doogie, if Jalen Suggs is even thinking about going to your school in your state, how do you not be all over that and be at
Dude, you should have a
practices?
van outside
Like,
his house.
The whole Tyus Jones or Trey Jones, I always just assumed, okay, it's going to be an uphill battle. Duke is Duke. But I mean, if this kid is even thinking in the back of his mind, you know what, I really do like Minnesota, and I play football, and I like PJ Fleck, and I can play both sports. I don't care if ultimately now he's telling the truth or not. How are you not building a hammock in the front yard of the Suggs family home and sleeping there until he says, nah, I'm going to pass?
Yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate undoing of Richard Pitino. That won't happen again. I can promise you. Like Ben Johnson, others with the Gophers were in the gym at Totino Grace recently at like 6:30 in the morning. Good. Because Totino Grace has some guys. Like, trust me, Tayson Chapman is a junior right now at Totino Grace. Probably one of the top 50 to 70 players in the country in the class of 2023. I actually think Ben Johnson can land the kid, but he's got myriad options. But I can promise you, Ben Johnson is going to recruit his ass off in that regard. If he loses Chapman, and again, I'm telling you, I think he can actually land him. But if he loses Chapman, it won't be from a lack of effort. That includes Dave Thorson and others over there. It's not going to happen again. But yeah, Richard Pitino, his lack of showing up, not just at Minnehaha Academy, but other local gyms, has a lot to do with him now being the head coach at New Mexico.
Doogie, great stuff. Thanks for the insight on the Timberwolves. I guess keep following Doogie on Twitter and KSTP 5 Eyewitness News. There's going to be plenty more to talk about here in the coming days and weeks, so we'll do it again next week, Doogs.
Absolutely. Quickly on the Vikings, I see Everson Griffin playing Sunday. I actually can see Dalvin Cook going on Sunday, and Anthony Barr certainly is making pretty good progress. I told Judd, Phil, on Tuesday that some Vikings people thought going back multiple weeks that they thought Anthony would be okay for week 2. They understood if he would miss week 1, but they thought he'd be back for week 2, misses the Cardinals game. So I know there's some Vikings people really feeling like Anthony Barr is on the cusp of returning.
Nice. All right. That's Darren Doogie Wolfson, inside information about your favorite Minnesota sports teams. And Scooby in the background.
And Scooby. Scoops and Scooby. Scoops with Scooby.
I love Scooby.
Love me some Scoops.
Do you want to do a couple old tweets before we got to get
we can squeeze
we got
it
to
in.
tape an interview with Scott Studwell. So stud. All right,
Stud.
this is Declan with old tweets exposed here
All right.
on Mackie and Judd.
Kind of similar to last week. I think we might have a runaway winner right off the bat here. September 12th, 2021. Greg Joseph, the greatest Vikings kicker
That was a
in
joke.
greatest kicker in Vikings history.
Very clearly satire
Okay.
here. Okay.
Oh, all right.
Tongue was
right.
pressed firmly in
Yeah.
my cheek as I tweeted this.
I'd like to jump on.
Look at that
Phil
thing.
for
It's
this
got
one,
a
but
1,000 likes on
Yeah,
that.
you got
man.
1,000
Look
likes
at
on that tweet. I don't
clickbait,
get
baby.
1,000
Yep.
likes. Yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
Just call me
Tongue-
clickbait.
All thought you were
Mackie.
serious.
Tongue
too,
in
Phil.
cheek.
Yep.
Tongue in cheek. he
Actually,
says.
yesterday was great. So I had one real quick yesterday. So, once or twice an hour, it seems like there's like a Kirk Cousins stat that comes out, right? Look at these Hall of Fame quarterbacks. He's just like them.
Yep.
And one of them came out yesterday. I just retweeted, sign him to an extension or we riot. And the amount of people that responded with, yeah, what's up with all these people that think Kirk's garbage? It's like, you might need a new sarcasm radar.
Yeah, that'll happen.
All right.
Judd Zulgad from training camp, July 29th, 2021. Greg Joseph has made all 5 of his field goal attempts toward the end of practice. For anyone who thinks this isn't a big deal, the recent history of Vikings kickers says otherwise.
And it bit him in the ass. Yep.
Oh man, yeah, he was tuned in on July 29th, man.
Yep.
That guy
Tuning up
was
the band.
July 29th is a
dialed
big day to be
dialed.
making your field goals.
with 4 fans in the bleachers cheering him on. It's great.
So I had to do an audible for my old tweet because we were recording about a half hour ago and I checked a Facebook memory, and this has nothing to do with Greg Joseph. It actually has nothing to do with the Vikings. But September 23rd, 2011, Chris Parmalee, you are my new favorite twin. So I do have that going for me.
You win.
Backdoor
I
win.
think.
Backdoor win. Backdoor
Parmalee.
win.
Well, first of all, mine was sarcasm. Judd was just observing,
Yeah.
Training camp observation. You're falling in love with a first-round bust here, Chris Parmalee. So I think
Backdoor win.
10-year anniversary of Declan falling in love with Chris Parmalee.
Oh,
So there it is. Old tweets exposed here. A very brief edition because we've just been ranting about the Timberwolves the whole show. All right. I don't know.
Yeah. I know.
I know.
It's very hard to be optimistic. Think about what we broke down today. 2 things. The Wolves, who continue to be as inept as any franchise in pro sports. And then the cherry on top, Jalen Suggs saying, I was all set to go to the Gophers, but Richard Pitino didn't really recruit me.
Amazing.
Minnesota sports fans,
Like,
no
are you
wonder they're
serious, dude?
scarred.
You should literally be to the point where they have to put a restraining order on you.
Yes.
Like following Jalen Suggs around from the bushes, from just wandering around his backyard at night. What are you doing?
The reason I believe him, though, is because he probably would have jumped at the opportunity to play football, too.
Yeah, could have played both. Gonzaga doesn't have football, do they? I don't think so. Maybe they have a club football team.
Not for, yeah.
Sure.
That would have been great.
All right,
Good job.
that's it. Mackie and Judd, daily Minnesota
Good job,
sports
guys.
entertainment and therapy. And don't forget our daily football and Vikings conversations on Purple Daily. We'll see you guys tomorrow.